how to have more fun. And not just have more fun, how to be more engaged, more excited, more interested in what you are doing now. I think this is a very important topic, and this is something that I have learned more about over the years. One thing I've discovered is you can't just depend on your environment. This is something I've done a lot in the past, and I've learned over the years it's not a good thing to do. What I used to do, when I was younger, I didn't know any better, was, if I was in a boring situation, which tended to be quite often, whether it was at school, someplace I didn't want to go, or somewhere for vacation that I didn't want to go, or just someplace boring that I didn't want to be at, or I just didn't find exceptionally interesting compared to maybe playing video games or doing something I wanted to do, I would just sit there, stare off into the distance, and act a little pissed off. Not act really, I was kind of just, annoyed. I would look at the clock, and you could tell I was disengaged, not interested, and on and on and on. And what I've discovered is that some of the most interesting people in the world, some of the most happy, fun individuals in the world that are just very interesting to be around, at least for me, and people that just bring a lot of energy, make things interesting and so forth, they don't really come into a situation and bring the environment with them. They walk into a boring environment or place and so forth, and they bring out the fun. They make boring things interesting. They'll find a way to make really boring situations into something interesting. They'll construct some type of game, or they'll just say such fun or funny or not necessarily, it's not always interesting, but it's something that just makes things more awesome. And I do think that to a certain extent, your environment has some effect. It's kind of like nature and nurture. You can't exactly rule one out completely. You can't bring even the most interesting person in the world, whoever you think that is, Russell Brand or whoever, and put him in the most boring environment ever. I mean, heck, he may be interesting for a short bit. Heck, some people might say that he'd be interesting for as long as all eternity in that boring environment, whatever it is, a room that has nothing in it. But I do think your environment plays some part. So again, because we do have some control on our environment sometimes, especially later on in life as we progress, I do think there's a certain amount of controlling your environment. Like heck, if you hate your job or you just absolutely hate what you're doing, there is certain aspects of potentially changing your environment to help you and get you to places where you are more engaged, you have more fun. I'm not going to lie, I do think that there are environments that are just really unconducive to you enjoying them, and just by the nature of it, you'll be bored out of your mind. But from what I've learned from being in environments where I've just been forced to be in them, whether or not I'm bored or not, slowly over the years I've started to learn that first off, for me personally, I can get very on the spoiled side. Because for one, the environment is not as bad as I think it is. Two, there are people around that I'm not giving my attention to, being present, and trying at the very least to enjoy it. And the same thing with the job, what I've learned after reading and consulting and talking and learning from real people who've gotten all sorts of different jobs and people who have really seen a lot of jobs. There's this one man who he hosts this show. I just saw a commercial for it today actually. I forgot his name, but the show's called Somebody's Gotta Do It. And it's this long running TV show that basically It's very well known. It's on CNN now, I believe. And basically, um, I think it started off with another TV show called Dirty Jobs, and the premise is the same. They go about profiling the jobs that no one wants to do, but somebody has to do, the most grotesque jobs. And there's so many out there, you know, um, septic tank jobs, cleaning out porta potties, on and on and on. And he basically did a Ask Me Anything on Reddit.com recently. And basically, what this is an interview where you can ask him anything anonymously through the website. And it was very fascinating because through that Ask Me Anything, as well as this interview that he did with, I think it was Business Insiders, they showed like a 5-minute clip of the interview. And he said something that really stuck to me. And I have seen it through and through again, from seeing people who were forced by circumstance to take jobs that they weren't necessarily passionate or enjoyed, but because they had to in order to pay rent or get by, or just jobs that they had to take for whatever reason. I have seen time and time again this same concept that this man illustrated, which was that um, if you just blindly follow your passion and take nothing else, and you're just super picky, that won't work, because from what real life entails, there are plenty upon plenty of people who, by necessity or whatever other reason, they have stumbled across a job that's initially based off whatever it was, from what it looked like, they didn't think they would like, and they had to take it or whatever. But they learned through time to enjoy the job, and not some of them, not all of them, not only enjoy it but love it and be very passionate about it. So it's a great lesson in terms of career, and also I think it's a great lesson in terms of having more fun, being a more interesting person, being a very charismatic, magnetic person that's very attractive to the ladies, and just being an awesome person all around. And it's not just about having fun, it's about being an interesting, awesome, magnetic person. You know, there are people that I know that, they're not always on. It's not like 100% of the time they always have a quick, witty, funny joke. They can always make you laugh. They always bring something interesting. It's not like that, but they have made it so that they are happy. They can bring very funny, interesting, exciting moments to a rather, from the outside, boring place. And so I do think it's not just the environment, it's you. You are another factor in this equation. So what I've learned is to stop being too spoiled, too picky, too arrogant, whatever you want to call it, and just being like, oh, I hate this place. Oh my goodness, I hate these people. It's so boring, da da da. And realizing, okay, it may not be the most interesting, but what can I do to make things more fun for me, for others? What can I do to be more interesting? Maybe I can get people to laugh, which will brighten their days, make it more interesting, make things more funny, and just bring about a better time for everyone else around. And I've pretty much taken this from people who have done the same thing. And so you can't rely on the fact that it's your environment. Environment plays some part, but at the same time, you play a huge part yourself. So work on it. Being funny and all this other stuff is not an overnight thing. It can take years to develop and so forth. So I'm working on it. And understand at the same time, you can get pretty far with it. I really do think. If you look at people like Chris Tucker and, like I mentioned before, Russell Brand, they can take it pretty far. But for you, especially if you're antisocial, you may never get to their level. So understand that you can only take it so far, and other factors are an influence. So if you really really do think that it's your environment and it's just a horrendous, boring place that you can't have fun, then you may have to cut it and set plans to moving towards something more fun and interesting for you. which you should always be doing. So that's all I really gotta say. I have gone through a lot of very boring, long, monotonous moments in my life. And I do think if I had used it sooner, I could have made them more fun. And rather than just being, um, you know, not really engaged with the people in front of me, I could have at least brought some more value to them and made them feel more interested rather than the snotty guy who wasn't, you know, wasn't bothered to even, you know, be present in the situation. Having said that, though, I've made progress in this over the years, uh, over time, and again, having said that, there will be people who just are they're quite frankly they're not interested in you. They don't like you as friends, as people, or they're just as bored as well, and they don't care as well, and they want to get out of there even more than you. So realize that you know, it's okay. Sometimes people are dicks as well, and work on yourself as well as your environment. That's all I gotta say. See ya.